really traumatic.
Just being more optimistic in general. You have grown as a person. I've seen so much since then.
You just introduced a new positive way of thinking into my life. Mind-boggling.
Welcome back to welcome to
the
first episode of Bitch Be Real. It's been a long time coming. My name's Nykayla.
My name's Brooke.
We are the girls behind BBR. Let's talk about how we got started.
We should also introduce our co-host. On the right, we have three-legged Coco. And on the left, we have Slater. He's fucking up a bone right now.
She's annihilating my finger, so great.
And my toe was out, so y'all get a little foot action.
So in January, we took a trip to the mountains. Yeah. Where were we? Boone?
Like near Boone. We were staying in a cute little shipping container you found.
There's some pictures up.
We went there as we started like a best friend trip thing. Mm-hmm. We went broke, so that got cut short for a little bit. But the goal was to do a trip.
A new city every month.
Yeah.
So like the beginning of the month, we would go and visit a new city that neither of us have ever been to before.
Yeah. And so we started there. It was very cute. It had hot tub. We were doing it as like really a relaxing trip.
Yeah, like we did like no phones for the most part.
Yeah.
We were trying to stay as much off of social media as possible. Mm-hmm. She is literally fucking up my shirt right now. Does it taste good? I'm wondering.
Clearly.
But yeah, we stayed in like the mountains. Dude, the freaking driveway. We need to have a moment for the
driveway. Holy shit.
90 degrees looking at the fucking sky.
I didn't have too much faith in your car. I was scared.
Yeah, the first time neither of us did. We were out there like, oh my God, we're going to make it.
I don't know really how we did it because you had to turn. So we went up and it was like 90 degrees and then it was just a complete right turn.
Yeah, it was like 90 degrees up and then 90 degrees to the right.
Yeah.
And then up again. Like it was literally like a fucking spiral up to the driveway.
Yeah. It wasn't as remote as I thought.
No. There was a bunch of other houses.
Yeah.
In the hot tub, we could see up like the hill to the other building that was over there.
Yeah, but we did, like it was kind of nice and wooded behind it, I would say. Like we took a little walk up there. It really wasn't anything, but like it was cute. At nighttime, especially when you could watch the cars and like you had a perfect picture of the sky.
Yeah, there was like a perfect cutout of the trees, like right in front of the hot tub, so you could see the stars, which like we're from Charlotte, North Carolina, so the the light pollution around here is so atrocious. Like you can't see any stars. No. So we got out there and we were amazed. There was like millions of stars in the sky.
Yeah. It was beautiful. It was
absolutely gorgeous.
So we pretty much just took that. It was like 3 days. I would say. We took the time to just like be off our phones. We did a bunch of things where like those cards, we asked each other questions. That's actually how we started the first podcast episode, like our little fake trial one.
Yeah, we were just having like a besties bonding night and we pulled out this like stack of cards and one of us, I don't remember who actually brought up the idea, but one of us said like this would be a really good podcast if we just talked about what was on these cards. We were going through the cards and one of us brought up the idea that like this would be a really good podcast. So I just whipped out my phone on voice memos and I just started filming. And we just started talking as if we were on a podcast really casually. And we were like, damn, like this is actually good.
Yeah.
But that was back in January. So we had a really good rest of our trip. Didn't really think too much about the podcast. It was just, like, it was really fun that we did it. And I listened back to it a couple times and there's some funny shit in there.
Yeah. That's what the teaser is from. We posted a little teaser on our Instagram kind of thing, like a little clip. And that's from the original podcast.
Yeah. With the moldy flower. If anybody saw the moldy flower clip, that was that was where that was from. So we didn't actually end up officially starting a podcast until now. But the idea has been floating around since then for like 8 months, but we kind of drifted apart very, very slightly. Yeah. Both of us were in relationships and just like naturally we kind of drifted apart. And now we have recently rediscovered our compatibility in conversation.
And how much I just fucking love being around you.
Yeah. We just rediscovered our friendship and how amazing it is. And so we were like, you know what, like, let's actually do the podcast for real. Yeah. And so we did. We started an Instagram for it. We came up with the inspiration for it, the idea, the concept of the podcast itself. Yeah. And then we spent a couple of days brainstorming and preparing. And then we bought microphones and here we are.
Yeah. Here we are. Bitch, I was going to say a good point.
What were you going to say?
Oh, how we met. I feel like is important and why we drifted apart too almost because we worked at the same restaurant for a year and a half together, and we worked the exact same shifts. We had pretty much the exact same schedule.
We really did. Like, we had the same days off. We had the same shifts together.
Yeah.
We didn't even know what work was without each other. And when we didn't work with each other, neither of us had a good time.
No.
Like, it was just awful.
It was horrible. I discovered that specific restaurant, how much I liked being there was solely because of you. So I feel like when we both ended up quitting, and we both like got pretty heavy into our relationships around the time we quit. And I feel like it just kind of made us communicate less. More than anything, I didn't really text you because like I was going to see you at 4 p.m. every day. I knew I would see your ass at 4 p.m.
We didn't have to like carve out time for each other because we'd see each other anyway. Like when we were cleaning up, we would have like 3 hours of time when we could talk. So now that we don't work together, we have completely different schedules. And then on top of that, both of us were in committed relationship, and you know, carving out time for each other was just something that was kind of on the back burner for a while. Yeah. And now it's just becoming a lot more relevant in our lives. Like us hanging out and us talking is like an everyday occurrence, which I love.
I love it too, bitch. Yeah, I feel like a major catapult was I just went through a breakup, and I like relied on you. I'm like relying on you pretty heavily to get through it if we're going to be real. Like that shit was rough. It was a very quickly serious relationship, and it ended pretty abruptly. So I feel like you were the bitch I wanted to go to. And I mean, you pretty much always have been, but just realizing that I didn't have that person anymore, like, because when you're in a relationship, they do become your best friend. Yeah. And I mean, that's completely normal. But when that went away, it was like, nah, now we're back to the OG fucking bestie. We're talking to her about all of this shit. I'm calling you. You're seeing all of it.
And it was a mutual thing. It really wasn't. It wasn't one of us that like drifted apart from the other one. It was just a really mutual, like not intentional at all. It was just something that kind of happened. And we didn't drift apart a lot. Like we still talk to each other as if we talk to each other every single day. Yeah. And so getting back into like seeing and talking to each other pretty much every day has not been something that's like disruptive or hard at all.
Yeah. I mean, it stayed just as natural. Like we still talked about all the same things. It was just so much less frequent. Yeah. If that's the right way to put it. Like we went from talking literally every single day to what I would say.
At the same time every day. Yeah. Like
for multiple hours.
For multiple hours, for months, and like having the same like experiences. Like we went through a lot of the same bullshit at work together, rude customers, and like going through all that stuff together, and then not having that to relate to. It was like we had different things to talk about. And now that we have discovered, is it multitude?
The multitude, yeah.
The multitude of other conversations that we can have, we realize that we are just so compatible in conversation. And it's so like every time we talk individually, like there are obviously things that we're not going to talk about in this podcast, but when we're talking outside of the podcast, every single time I'm thinking this would be such a good podcast episode.
I know.
Because I feel like, and this is not to toot our own horns at all, it's just the way that we articulate our thoughts is just so, it's very casual, and you know, what we talk about is relatable. What we're going to talk about on this podcast is going to be relatable. It's going to be casual, so it's not scripted. Like, it's just going to be fun. Like, we're just going to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the whole basis of this podcast is like what we talk about is real, period. We are so comfortable around each other. We don't sugarcoat things. We don't, leave out details. We don't like walk around things because we don't want the other person. It's not because I don't want you to know. What happened? Bitch, I'm telling you what happened.
Exactly. Every detail to each other. Yeah. Now, on this podcast, we're going to shelter some things because there are things that just don't belong on the internet.
Yeah, and there's privacy concerns that we do need to consider when talking. But that's pretty much the inspiration of this whole podcast is just being completely real about things. There's so many unrealistic standards out there in the world from social media, from past generations. Like the stigmas they had back then that makes them think that they have to live up to these high standards is deeply ingrained. Pretty much what this whole podcast is about and what we've based our friendship on is just being completely real with each other and talking.
Since day one.
Yeah.
Like there hasn't really been much, like we didn't genuinely, I don't feel like we had much of an awkward phase. No. The first time we hung out was over margaritas, which is something that we do pretty much every time we hang out. We make margaritas together. Yeah. We literally call when we hang out, like if we hang out once a week, we call it Marg Night. Like that is the base.
That's been the original thing. That was the original name for our podcast too, that we like thought of in the mountains was something along the lines of like Margarita Night, Marg Night, something like that. Because that's what we based our entire friendship on. You were like, do you want margaritas? And I was like, fuck yeah, I want margaritas. So I went over to her apartment. We had margaritas. I fell asleep on your couch. She wants that bone.
Y'all are so crazy.
Like, that was pretty much how it all started, over a strawberry margarita. Now, this one isn't strawberry. We should get into the margarita. Okay, tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Our bartender, Brooke.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? What can I say?
Professional mixologist.
Yep, I have a little bar cart. Y'all can't see off camera. I like alcohol a lot. We have, what is it? An Italian sweet cherry margarita. The base is like Blanco tequila, and then you add an ounce of amaretto, which is like an Italian liqueur. So it doesn't have super high alcohol content, but it's very sweet. It's got like an almondy flavor. So we did that. We muddled some cherries, added lime, honey. Fucking delicious right now.
It's so good.
Actually, let me take a little.
Yeah.
I hope y'all heard the refreshment in that. Should we get into ASMR? People don't want to hear us ASMR from us.
No, I don't even want to hear ASMR from myself.
But I feel like this is very reminiscent because it's pink. It still has that like fruity flavor of the first margarita we ever made together. But this is like the elevated version now that we're in our classy bitch shit.
Yeah, it's more classy.
Okay, hold on. Let me be a mother. Stop fighting over the bones, bro. Yeah, so they're not getting along quite yet.
Coco's new here.
Coco is new here. I got her a week ago. Okay, so she's only got 3 legs. I like to mention that because I think it's funny.
Well, she has 4 legs, but she only has 3 working legs.
And only 2 of her kneecaps that I know of. The other 2 might be fucked up. Only 2 of her kneecaps are functional right now, okay?
She's a little bit fucked up, but she's the cutest fucking thing in the whole world, so we forgive her for being a little fucked up.
Yeah, he is a very jealous dog. You know, he's just not used to this. He was my baby for 2.5 years before I got her. So he's very spoiled.
She's so curious.
She wants to be on the podcast. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much how our friendship started. After that, we pretty much just started hanging out more and more frequently. From the restaurant, we both lived 5 minutes away. It wasn't hard for me to be like, do you want to come over after work? It wasn't hard for me to go over to your house after work. It was just super easy.
We were pretty much constantly together. Yeah. Like even though we saw each other 5 days a week at work, we still hung out outside of work. And also, I feel like part of us having a compatible conversation is just having a compatible friendship in general. Like, we enjoy doing a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
One of the first things we did outside of like drinking margaritas together, because we're not necessarily alcoholics, was just like going to a coffee shop together. Yeah. And just hanging, like, honestly, just being in the presence of Bestie Brooke is all I really need. Like, sometimes I just, like, you just need to have that time.
Yeah, you do. I feel like you'll see on the podcast, we do have varying opinions, but they all come down to the same principles, the same morals, the same outlook, the same what we want to achieve in our life. It all lined up to where we've really never had any disagreements. We've never had a fight.
We've been friends for like 2 years. 2 years now. Officially 2 years. So, yeah. And I feel like we both have grown as people so much since the beginning. Like, when I first met you, I was in a horrible place in my life, was in the middle of a bad place in a relationship. I was in a pretty bad place mentally. I was very codependent. And so Brooke is one of the main people in my life that helped me gain my independence back. Because I've always been someone that is just like extremely independent to a fault. So like relearning that after being in such a codependent relationship that I lost it, relearning that was hard to do on my own. And Brooke helped me a lot with that. So
yeah. And I feel like when we met, I was in a relationship, my most long-term relationship in my life so far, but it was a very immature relationship that I think actually I may have just gotten out of it.
The first time I actually ever talked to you, you were talking about your breakup.
Yeah. So I had just gotten out of it. I felt like I had learned a lot in that relationship, and I tried to pass on my wisdom. And I feel like you just passed on your wisdom of like positivity. I wasn't at really a point in my life where I would say I was super positive. Like, I feel like when you met me, I was like in my emo phase to a certain extent mentally. I just had this outlook on like, fuck, I'm mentally ill. And like, that's it. Like,
yeah, that's how it's always going to be like that. Yeah.
Like, I pretty much just thought like what I've experienced up until my life at that point was really bumpy, really traumatic. And so I was like, this is just kind of how it's always going to be. and there's like nothing I can do about it. But I feel like meeting you, I kind of learned like, no, like there is something you can do about it. Like you just introduced a new positive way of thinking into my life that was like mind-boggling at that point. Like it really
just being more optimistic in general. And I feel like now that like you're not in that, because you have grown as a person. I've seen so much since then to where like your outlook on life is so extremely optimistic. Every time that I have a problem, she's the first person that I go to because we bounce optimism off of each other. We bounce good ideas and good mindsets and healthy, like anything that we have. It's just always so positive. Like I go with the problem. Each of us can give each other positive advice and help each other move through it without, and that's obviously not like always the case. Like sometimes you just got to complain to your bestie and talk shit, and then we can sense each other's vibe. Like when you need to just vent and talk shit, like do that.
It's just so perfect. Like I feel like this is gonna get repetitive, but through this podcast, you're just gonna hear that like we literally think the world of each other pretty much. Like look, I'm a little fruity. Y'all gonna come to learn this. This bitch is the optimal woman in my eyes, romantically or not, okay? She is just the optimal woman. Gorgeous, positive mindset. Like, I was just in awe when I met her that, like, she, like, someone like this could even exist because I just had never been surrounded by somebody who I felt had the same baseline as me in terms of, like, just what I wanted. It really is true when they say that you turn into the people you surround yourself with.
Oh, yeah.
And you were the first person that I feel like I surrounded myself with that I feel like I actively was like, I want to continue surrounding myself with them because I see that they're bringing in positive energy. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of my friends that I had up until meeting you, like I connected with them, yeah, but I ended up realizing that like we were just growing in different paths. What they wanted out of their life, how they thought about things, who they surrounded themselves with wasn't something I necessarily wanted to associate with anymore, but it wasn't something I actively thought about until I met you and I was like, wait a minute, I'm now surrounding myself with a healthy person and I see it. I see it throughout my life. It's not just, oh, okay, you know, they are a pretty negative influence, but it's not going into my life. Like I'm independent. It's not going to flood into how I think and how I act and my motivation. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's even something I lost in past relationships that you kind of helped snap me out of. I didn't surround myself with the best people romantically. Mm-hmm. And it definitely affected me. Yeah. And I feel like the major thing we first bonded on was bad relationships.
Yeah, for sure. I have a very similar experience, I guess, with friendships, where she said that she had connected with other girls, or where you said that you had connected with other friends in the past. I have never. And up until I met you, I thought that every single girl was a bitch. And I have never had a friendship where I genuinely wanted to hang out with them. Sorry if the angle's a little bit funky on camera if you're watching the YouTube video, if it's a little bit different than the last time because the camera died. But we're back. I was saying I've never experienced a female friendship where I didn't have any like eel.
Didn't have any oceanic intent.
No marine intent.
Hi, it's Nykayla. I just want to come on here and say that I never got to finish this thought because I was very distracted by the technical difficulties we were having with the camera and it cutting off. So I never got to finish this thought. And so what I said is different from what I meant in this. And I just want to say that what I meant was that I have had connections in the past that were friendships that I would consider those people friends. Those friendships ended. I guess in my opinion, on my end, those friendships weren't really exactly what I was looking for in a friend. And that's fine. The relationships that I have with those same people now are very much like adult relationships now. They support me. I support them. We have went our separate ways. We're now adults. We've grown out of whatever phase we were in when we were friends. And that's fine with me. And I've accepted that. I was trying to say that I've never had the same level of connection with a female friend or with a friend in general. I've never had the same level of connection in a friendship that I have with Brooke. That is all I was trying to say. Not that I had never had friends before her, because I have, and those people just weren't meant to stay in my life long term, and that's fine. I've accepted that.
Yeah, I had one pretty major best friend from the time I went to a very small Christian school. I'm not religious. I never really have been. So it was super hard, and you grew up in a really small high school too. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in high school, we both pretty much had the same experience of struggling to make connections with people in general, friendship-wise. At least that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I found one really great friend. You know, she was there for me a lot at the time, but I was friends with her since literally the first day of 6th grade. I mean, you just end up growing apart. It's what happened. And I do have to say, I ended in the friendship in a way that I'm not particularly proud of. And honestly, I feel a little bit of shame about how I ended the friendship. I don't feel like I ended it in a way that I now look back and say I respect. And I did, you know, kind of try to reconnect with that friend because after I stopped being friends with her from about 10th grade to graduating high school to meeting you, I pretty much had no friends. Like, not a single one. She was pretty much all I had. And once I wasn't friends with her anymore, I pretty much had no friends. It was my brother and my mom. And so when I started my friendship with you, I felt like I had been like out of the game. And it was a different type of friendship automatically than the way that one was. Just because now it was like 2 grown people being friends instead of 2 kids. Like, pretty much instantly, we were super vulnerable with each other.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The second time we hung out, we got into some really deep conversations, like things that we felt pretty shameful about in ourselves, but we were so connected that it was like we were comfortable being vulnerable with each other instantly, which is so cool.
Yeah, we sat across from each other on my couch, and
Exactly how we're sitting right now.
Exactly. And I lived alone. So when we first kind of went over to your house, you were living with somebody. So we couldn't instantly talk about like everything without somebody else hearing it.
Right.
So I feel like that did hold us back to a slight degree, but it was perfect because we kind of got into it the first night that we hung out. Like, we definitely hit some pretty deep topics, but we didn't go really underneath the surface of them, I would say. But when we hung out the second time, there was no TV on. There was no music. I don't even think there were lights on.
No, it was dark.
Literally just us sitting in my empty ass living room.
And it was like midnight because we had just both gotten off a shift at Buffalo Wild Wings. And so we literally went straight from the restaurant to your apartment.
Yeah, and we just sat on my couch and like we got into it. And I feel like once we both shared that initial thing that we pretty much hadn't told anyone at that point. And I think we both realized like, okay, this is it. Like, I instantly had trust in you that you weren't going to go back and share it with the people we worked with. You weren't going to go to, you know, the other people in your life and spill what I had told you. And we ended up eventually pretty much proving that to each other because we never did.
To this day, we never really have, like, I've never really talked shit about you and exposed any of the things that you've told me, anything that you have felt bad about. I've never really just like gone behind your back and like betrayed you in that way.
Yeah, which is hard to find because when you're meeting someone new, there's always that aspect of, if I tell this to this person, is it going to come back and bite me? Like, is it going to come back in a negative way because they shared it with somebody I didn't want it being shared with? It definitely crossed my mind when I was talking to you the first time. Clearly it doesn't now. Then I realized, like, you never told anyone. I never heard it going around the restaurant, and that restaurant was gossipy.
Oh my God, yeah. Drama filled.
Yeah, like
everybody knew everything about everybody else. Like,
you know, if you would have went and told somebody, trust me, I would have known about it. It would have come back to me, especially because what I opened up to you about was something having to do with something that transpired in that restaurant that I wasn't feeling so great about. So it was like a big thing when I realized, like, shit, she didn't tell nobody. Like, we're an open book now. Like, I can get into it. We did.
I think for both of us, the best friend thing happened very early on. Like, literally, I think after that conversation, we started calling each other bestie. And that is a nickname that both of us have had for each other. Like, I don't even call her by her name.
No.
Like, it's weird to say Brooke. Like, we just call each other bestie.
Yeah. That's it. Like, if I'm talking about bestie, everyone knows who it is. Like, even my mom, my brother, it's like, yeah, I was talking to bestie. They know who it is. It's you. It's nobody else. It could be nobody else. Like, I feel like even now it's pretty safe to say that we're pretty much my only friend if we're going to be real. Like, I'm thinking about my friend roster.
If I say that I'm hanging out with friends, Brooke will be included for sure. And there's probably not going to be anybody else there.
Yeah, let's be real. Like, I'm thinking about my friend roster and my mom, my brother, you.
Yep, same.
Can't think of a single other human on it, which I'm completely fine with. At this point in my life, you're all I need.
I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity, especially when it comes to people in your life. Yeah. And so I would much rather have one friend that I can tell everything to rather than have 15 friends who could not give a fuck less about me.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I've always felt, really. Like, I've never had a big friend circle.
Yeah, me neither.
Which is completely fine by me. Going back to the vulnerable thing, I mean, right off the bat, we were like that. But there have definitely been some pivotal moments in our friendship where we have felt just another level of vulnerable around each other. Example, we have been hanging out consistently and been best friends for 2 years. We've hugged twice.
Two times.
Two times. The first time was in the middle of a mall, and it was because we hadn't seen each other in like a month. The second time was on the mountain trip that we mentioned earlier, and we did the plate thing.
Yeah.
It was like trending on TikTok for a while.
Yeah, you brought up the idea. I'd never really heard of it or seen it, but I think you sent me a few videos on it.
Yeah.
And we pretty much decided, like, let's do this on the trip. It was, you get a plate and you get like a Sharpie or, you know, whatever you want to write on it with. It doesn't really fucking matter. And you just write pretty much whatever you want to write on it. And I think we both pretty much went into pretty deep things on that plate. We didn't read each other's. I have no idea what you put on yours.
I have no idea what you put on yours. But we gave each other a vague like idea of what we wrote about just because we wanted to like talk about it a little bit. Like, give each other an idea of what we were like trying to let go of. And so we pretty much just wrote whatever we personally wanted to, but I took a picture of mine just because I wanted to remember it. I didn't ask to read hers. She didn't ask to read mine. I didn't really care to read yours, honestly. Like, that's something that's personal to you, and that's fine. We gave each other a very brief description of what we wrote on it. And then we drove to the top of like a mountain somewhere.
We were on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So we drove to an overlook. But I don't think it was even overlooking anything. It was
just like a parking lot. Like, there's just like a little open area, and it was nighttime.
I would have to say like midnight.
Yeah, it was after sunset, so it was dark out. We aimed the headlight in the front of us, and I took a video. The video is going to show on the screen because it was a very powerful moment for both of us. I don't think we were expecting it to be as powerful as it was. Like, we were like, oh, they just smashed a plate, like, cool, whatever. But like, the feeling that I had was just so intense after like the video. You can even see like how powerful the smashing was from both ends. That shit went fucking everywhere.
And we put on music. I think it was Pink Whitney by Post Malone. We walked up in front of the car. The video was going. We smashed the plates. To everyone else, this might sound kind of cheesy because if I heard this coming from someone, I would be like, all right, you're kind of exaggerating. But I think it was like, you know, music sets the mood for everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a good song. You know, we were on this trip. Like, we hadn't been on our phones. He agrees. And we smashed the plates, and it's just this feeling of like, to me, it was almost like overwhelming joy and just like an overwhelming deep breath. That feeling after like you got off a really shitty shift and you come home and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, like the feeling your body has when you sit down for the first time after 12 hours on your feet, like just an overwhelming relief.
Yeah.
Like weight lifted off of your shoulders. And I think it was so powerful for both of us that like that was the second time we ever hugged, and like we haven't hugged since then.
And it was a hug.
It was
you'll see
in the video. You can see like we literally we were like weak. Yeah. Like we fell into each other, and that is literally the second time we've hugged in our relationship. And I would say that was probably the most powerful moment that we've ever had.
Like, I just felt, I'm not a very affectionate person. It is something that I aim to change in the future. I admire people that are huggers and that can show physical affection without it making them uncomfortable. But I feel like that's a pretty normal thing, especially in our generation.
Yeah.
You know, to not really want to show physical affection in a lot of ways. And it's something I struggle with pretty deeply. Mm-hmm. And so I've never been the type to hug people. It's fucking awkward for me to hug my mom.
Yeah.
Like, it's awkward for me to hug my brother, you know, people I've known my entire life, literally.
Yeah.
It's still almost tense for me to hug them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, we didn't even think about it. There was no hesitation going into the hug. It was just like,
this is what, like, it was just like a draw.
Yeah.
Like we had, like, it was just like an overwhelming, like something that we felt like we needed to do.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy. Like I said, we've hugged twice in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I mean, it was really like it just made me feel so deeply connected, so relieved, so calm. And then afterwards, we are environmentally friendly women. We stand for the environment here. So we did sweep it up for the wildlife.
Every single bit. And I still have the box.
I saw it when you were moving.
Mm-hmm. And it was kind of cool. I took some pictures. I'll put them up on the screen too. The pictures, because some of the pieces broke. Like we drew, like, I don't know who drew, but
I think
I just drew like flowers
or just like little doodles kind of on the plates.
Mm-hmm. And they broke like perfectly to where there was like 2 flowers sitting next to each other. And I took a picture of it because I thought it was cool.
Yeah. And we swept it up. We put it in a box. We drove back to like the little Airbnb we were staying at. And I think from there on, to me at least, it felt like different.
Mm-hmm. It was like renewed.
Yeah. Like I aim to feel that energy with you in multiple moments going forward in our life. Like that feeling was truly something that I want to feel a lot in my life. That just feeling of release and connection with someone is really genuinely special because you don't feel it a lot.
Yeah.
And I think from then on, it's just took our relationship to another level.
It's just a different level of comfort. That whole weekend too, we were already really comfortable with each other in terms of like friendship, but I feel like after that, we were just that much more comfortable with each other. Like there's probably nothing in this world that will happen to me that I will do that I will feel any kind of like
way about telling me about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's just nothing that I'll ever do unless it's against you personally, which I would never do anyway. But there's just nothing that I think I would feel uncomfortable talking to you about because we just have that. And like, there's no judgment, jealousy or competition, which is so weird because I feel like another thing with like female friendships that's common is constant competition.
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, we have healthy competition.
We do.
When it comes to like, when we worked in the same restaurant, we worked on the same side. So there was an equal opportunity for us to make money.
Yeah.
So we had some healthy competition when it came to money, but it was never like, oh my God, you made more money than me, bitch. Like, I hate you. Yeah. It was never like that.
We really genuinely built off each other's competition. When we both worked at Buffalo Wild Wings, like we would always tell each other what we made, like plain up, straight and simple, whether you made more than me, whether I made more than you, it was like, good for you, bitch. Yeah. And we shared what we found made each other more money. You know, if I thought this was making me more money, I would tell you. If you thought like, hey, I just did this to a table and I made a lot more money, I think because of it, you would tell me. We learned from each other. We used each other's presence as motivation to do better.
In the same sense of us going to each other for advice, if something bad happened from one table, like there would be times, as a server, you go through these phases. Sometimes you'll say something that's a little bit awkward to a table and you're like, fuck, I just messed up that tip. Like we would go to each other and say things like that. And I'd be like, nah, you can redeem yourself. Like you'll get them back. Like you're very good at talking. You're very good at what you do, like whatever. And then she would go back and make money from that table. Or the same thing would happen to me. Like I'd be like, oh my God, like this guy's being so awkward. Like one time you dripped water on someone's phone.
Yeah.
I don't remember actually what happened with that, but that the lady was like, I just bought this new phone too.
It was rough.
But I mean, she came to me and I was like, you'll be able to redeem it. Like, make a joke about it later or something. Yeah. I don't remember if she actually made money from it, but I assume, she didn't get stiffed because I didn't hear anything after that. But
yeah, it's like, I feel like that's pretty much how we've always been. Is just, there's genuinely never been a point where I felt like I had to hold something back out of fear of how you would react, which is really hard to find, whether that's in friendships, in family relationships, in romantic relationships. There's a lot of times where I feel like when you're with another person, you do feel like you have to hold back to almost shield them from getting their feelings hurt, or, you want to shield yourself from how they're going to react. Like if you think they're going to, be super mad because you did this or whatever. I just never felt like that with you. Like, even if I made more money than you or you made more money than me, because money is a super sensitive topic for people. It really is. People get really upset about it. And especially in restaurants, if you've worked in a restaurant as a server, you know that people get pissed. People get pissed if they feel like you made an extravagant amount more money than them and they work the same shift, the same hours, whether that be because the host or whatever happened. And I always knew no matter what we made, no matter how the night went, we would be happy for each other. Mm-hmm. It was never like, fuck you. Like, you made more money than me. Screw you. I'm mad. I'm upset. There
was one of those nights. I remember one of those nights when I just was having a really bad night.
I remember this now, yeah.
And I was just in a really bad fucking mood. And I did treat her. I treated you poorly, I would say, for a certain amount of time.
Like an hour. But, guys, let's preface this. She was a bitch for like an hour.
And I will say openly that I was a fucking bitch. Like, I was raging, and I finished my side work and I fucking walked out, and I was mad. Didn't even say goodbye, which is something that we have never done. We always wait for the other person. Mm-hmm. We always walk out together. We always we're literally talking up until the moment that we put our heads inside of our cars. Yeah. That was always something that we did. And so I walked out and I got in my car and I was like, oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with me? So I went to the fucking gas station.
I remember this now.
The road. I went to the gas station and I picked up peanut M&Ms. Because peanut M&Ms are one of the snacks that Brooke and I would eat together. They're just one of our favorite snacks to eat together. So I picked up a giant bag of peanut M&Ms. I handed it to her, and I was like, I'm sorry for being a bitch, and fucking walked out. She was like, I knew there was something wrong.
Yeah, and even in that moment, I would like to say that I wasn't even mad. Because I knew to my core, our friendship is fucking solid. And I was like, everybody gets in those times, okay? And I literally thought, I was like, yeah, she's mad. But I was like, it is not towards me. Mm-hmm. It never crossed my mind even once that, she's upset at me. It was just, some nights at that restaurant were just, oh, my God, shitty.
Overwhelmingly, exhausting.
We worked really long hours, 12-hour shifts. And there would be times that it felt like we just literally endured, 12 hours of rude-ass people, of running around. We both had crazy sections. We ran. Mm-hmm. And it just gets exhausting. But I never thought, oh, she's mad at me. And I knew because I know your character. I remember looking at our manager and was our manager was like, what was that about? And I was like, just a shitty night. I didn't talk shit about you. I wasn't fuck that bitch. It was just she had a bad night.
And I felt really bad about how I treated her. Everybody has those moments.
Yeah, I mean, there were times that, I feel like this is something we haven't even really talked about up until this point that I regret in our friendship is I was super judgmental of a relationship. Her current relationship, I was super judgmental at the get-go, okay? I was in my hoe phase, and I will say it. I had just gotten out of my relationship. I was in that point in time where it's I'll ghost someone, I don't feel bad about it. I was in a very immature place. I'll ghost somebody and I don't feel bad. I'll sleep around and I don't feel bad. That's in the headspace I was in, and I feel like I almost pressured it upon you. And there were times that I hardcore judged her relationship. I hardcore judged the person she was starting this relationship in. And now I think he's a fucking great guy. And I've never really talked to him about it, too much. I've never really expressed even to you. I fucking love it. I think he's great. And I think he's super amazing for you. But there are times that I even look back now and I'm I really regret how I went about that, because I just forced how I was feeling in my views on relationships so much onto you. And it did cause some animosity for a while. Mm-hmm. The camera died again. So if this is a different angle, again this time, we're having technical difficulties. It will be better next time.
It will be. We'll be better prepared next time.
Okay. So as I was saying, I definitely feel at that point in my life, I was projecting pretty seriously on you to a degree. I feel we never even really had a serious conversation about it. We knew, or I guess I realized that I was fucking up, and I started to see that he really was a good guy. And that, I started almost to put my trust in him. Not that I never had trust in you to make your own decisions, but I just realized that I'm going to give you my advice. And I did it with pure intent. It was what I thought was right in the moment. Looking back, I realized that I pushed it a little bit too far. And I don't even agree with my point of view that I had at that time. Looking back, it's not something I agree with. I hope to never be in that headspace again. I hope to have a much more mature outlook from here on out in my personal relationships. And, the outlook I had at that point in my life, I just projected on you. We kind of moved on from it, honestly. And I realized he was a really good guy. Love him now. Think he's a great dude. We just kind of moved on from it, and now here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was never really a need for a big conversation. It was never, those are really the only 2 times where we fought, but it wasn't even really a fight because it was just, there was never even a need to like have a serious conversation. We just, like, we accepted it and moved on. I knew that like she just wanted what was best for me in the moment. And I gave her the idea that what she was telling me was what I wanted. And I was in between, and I wasn't even like upset with her or mad at her or anything ever for what she was saying. It was really just me being in between multiple people's opinions about what I should do and then how I actually felt. And once I determined how I actually felt in the moment, it was easy to make a decision, and I feel like I made the right one. We don't hold that against each other. I'm going to give you my best advice. If you take it, cool. If you don't, like, you're going to make your own decision regardless. So there's no sense in us getting upset with each other for giving each other advice, even if we don't agree with it.
Yeah. Because for each of us, we've only ever done what we thought is best for the other person and tried to advise them in a way that we think would be most beneficial for the other. It's never been like, I'm giving you this advice to screw you over. And so I feel like we're just at a super good point now.
And that was a while ago. That was like a year ago.
Yeah, like let's just...
Oh my God, that was a year ago.
A hot minute ago. And it was actually pretty early into our friendship still.
Maybe a year into our friendship. So now that y'all are up to date on our friendship and you know a little bit more about us.
Our backstory, our history, all of our things.
This is officially the end of episode 1.
Yes, we wrapped up our first podcast
episode in the books. How do you feel, bestie? I feel like this was a good conversation.
I feel great. These margaritas were great. This conversation was great. The next episodes, we will be diving into more specific things for sure. Getting more details. You'll start learning more about our opinions, our point of views, and things like that. This was really just backstory so y'all knew us, had a groundwork.
Had a good foundation for how we speak and how we talk to each other in our friendship and what a lot of our opinions are going to be based on. Thanks for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. As always, not as always, because this is the first time, but as
it always will be.
As it always will be. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, post on our Instagram every single day. Yeah. So there's always updates there.
At the BBR Pod.
At the BBR Pod on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. All of our socials are going to be the BBR Pod. If you want to stay up to date on everything we're doing on a daily basis, go there.
Go there, please. Please, everybody watch it.
Officially the end of the first episode of BBR.
Yes. Thank you
for watching.
For giving us a bit of your time. We love you. We did it, bitch. From our co-host, do you have any words? Great input, guys. They will be featured in many of the next ones. So
absolutely.
Come back for a cute dog things. Fucking delicious right now.
It's so good.
Actually, let me take a little.
Yeah.
I hope y'all heard the refreshment in that. Should we get into ASMR? People don't want to hear us ASMR from us.
No, I don't even want to hear ASMR from myself.